I drove 40 minutes to my daughter Sarah's house. The white envelope rested in the passenger seat. I looked at it several times during the drive. I imagined her smile when she would open it. I imagined her arms wrapping around me. I imagined that maybe this time she would invite me inside. That maybe this time she would introduce me with pride. That maybe this time I wouldn't be invisible. It was her birthday, 36 years old. I had brought her into the world on a day like today. I had raised her alone after her father passed away. I had given her everything. Every single penny, every dream, every sacrifice had her name written on it. When I arrived in front of her house, the lights were on. There were several cars parked in the driveway. Expensive cars. Shiny. I recognized David's, my son-in-law. I recognized Carol's, her mother-in-law. My stomach tightened, but I paid it no mind. Maybe it was a small gathering. Maybe they were waiting for me. I rang the doorbell with the envelope in my hand. I heard hurried footsteps. The door opened just a crack. It was Sarah. Her face showed no joy. It showed alarm. "Mom, what are you doing here?" It wasn't a question. It was an accusation. "I came to drop off your present, my love. Happy birthday." I held the envelope out to her. Sarah looked back over her shoulder. I heard voices inside. Laughter, the sound of glasses clinking, soft music in the background, a party to which I had not been invited. Sarah stepped out onto the porch and closed the door behind her. She quickly took the envelope from my hands. She held it against her chest without opening it. "Please, Mom, my mother-in-law is here with my husband's family. The table is set. I can't possibly host you right now." Her words struck me like stones, each one heavier than the last. I just stood there staring at her, unable to understand, unable to process what I had just heard. She took a step toward me. I backed up. She put her hand on my shoulder and pushed me gently, but with intent toward the steps. "We'll talk later, Mom. It's okay. Thanks for coming." The door closed. I heard the lock click. I heard her footsteps retreating back inside. I heard the music volume go back up. I heard someone asked who it was and how Sarah replied that it was just someone selling something. I stood there in front of that closed door. My legs wouldn't move. My chest rose and fell. But I didn't feel any air coming in. The house lights shone warm, yellow, welcoming. But I was outside in the darkness, in the cold of the night. I walked toward my car as if in a dream. I opened the door. I sat down. I closed it. The silence inside the car was deafening. I put my hands on the steering wheel. I looked at them. Old hands wrinkled, hands that had worked a lifetime, hands that had held Sarah when she was a baby, hands that had signed checks, hands that had cleaned, cooked, sacrificed, hands that had just been rejected by their own daughter. I took a deep breath once, twice, 3 times, but the air didn't reach my lungs. It only reached my throat and stayed there, stuck like the words I couldn't say, like the scream that wouldn't come out. I looked toward the house. The curtains were drawn, but I could see shadows moving inside. I could imagine the scene, the long table, the fine china, the crystal glasses, David at the head, Carol beside him, David's siblings. Their spouses, their children, all laughing, all toasting, all celebrating my daughter's birthday. And me, outside as always. I looked for my phone in my purse. My fingers trembled, not from fear, not from sadness, from something deeper, from something that had been asleep for years and had just woken up. I dialed a number. I waited. 2 rings, 3. "Mrs. Rose Peterson. I'm glad to hear from you." The voice on the other end was professional, calm, efficient. "Do it," I told him. "Do everything we discussed now." There was a pause. "Are you sure, Mom?" "Once we start, there's no turning back. I have never been more sure of anything in my life." I hung up. I left the phone on my lap. I looked toward the house one last time. The lights were still on. The laughter was still sounding. The party went on as if nothing had happened, as if I didn't exist. But something had changed. Something inside me had broken. Or maybe it had been fixed. I wasn't sure yet. I started the car. The taillights illuminated the closed door. I backed out. I drove away slowly, without haste, without apparent anger, only with a cold calm that surprised even me. As I drove back home, my phone started to vibrate once, twice, 10 times, 20. I didn't touch it. I didn't look at it. I knew what was happening. I knew that at that moment in that brightly lit house where I wasn't welcome, everyone's phones were blowing up. I smiled. It was a small smile, sad but also liberating. They didn't know that I had everything ready. They didn't know that the call I had just made wasn't out of desperation. It was an execution of a plan that I had been preparing for months, since the last time Sarah lied to me, since the last time she hid me, since the last time I felt like a burden and not her mother. The phone kept vibrating. I imagined Sarah's face. I imagined her panic. I imagined how David would look at her, how Carol would judge her, how everyone at that perfect table would realize that the woman they had just ignored, the woman they had just left outside in the cold, was not who they thought. But they still didn't know everything. They still didn't know what was coming. This was just the beginning. I arrived home. I parked. I turned off the engine. I stayed sitting in the darkness of the garage. The phone kept vibrating. Now there were calls one after another. Sarah, David, unknown numbers, all wanting explanations, all wanting to fix what they had just broken. But it was too late. I had waited too long. I had forgiven too many times. I had accepted too many crumbs of love when I deserved the full banquet. No more. I took the phone. I turned it off. The silence returned. A different silence. Not the silence of loneliness. The silence of decision. Of the peace that comes after the storm. After years of making myself small so others could feel big. I went into my house. I turned on the lights. I made myself some tea. I sat in the living room. I looked at the photos on the wall. Photos of Sarah as a child. Sarah graduating. Sarah at her wedding. I was always there in every photo, in every important moment, but always on the side, always in the background, always invisible. Tomorrow those photos would come down from the wall. Tomorrow, many things would change. But tonight, I just wanted to sit here in my own house, in my own silence, and know that for the first time in years, I had taken control. That for the first time in years, I mattered. I couldn't sleep that night. I stayed awake, staring at the ceiling of my room. Shadows danced with the street light coming through the window. I thought about how I had gotten here, how the girl who once hugged me every night before bed had become the woman who pushed me out the door. Sarah wasn't always like this. There was a time when I was her hero, her everything, her whole world. When her father died, she was only 8 years old. It was a heart attack. Sudden without warning. One day he was alive and the next he wasn't. I remember how Sarah clung to me at the funeral, how she buried her face in my chest and cried until she fell asleep, how she told me she was afraid I would leave too. I promised her I would never leave her, that I would always be there, that I would do everything possible to make sure she had a good life. And I kept that promise. I worked double shifts at the hospital. I was a nurse. I didn't earn much, but it was enough. Enough to keep the house, to pay for her school, to buy her books, clothes, everything she needed. She never went without anything. Never. On weekends, I took her to the park. We sat on the benches and shared an ice cream. She told me about her friends, about her dreams. She wanted to be a doctor. She wanted to help people like me. She wanted to make her dad proud from wherever he was. I told her he already was, that she was perfect, that I loved her more than anything in the world. When she started college, I had to make bigger sacrifices. Tuition was expensive. Books were expensive. The apartment near campus was expensive, but I didn't complain. I took extra shifts. I sold a few things. I took out a small loan. Whatever was necessary. Sarah was studying medicine. I was proud. My daughter would be a doctor. All the effort would be worth it. But in her 3rd year, something changed. She met David. He was studying business administration. He came from a family with money, a lot of money. His father had import businesses. His mother was from an old family with a well-known name. They had a large house in the best part of the city. They had imported cars. They had everything. At first, I was happy. Sarah seemed happy. She talked about him all the time. How chivalrous he was, how smart, how he treated her like a princess. I met him 6 months later. He came to the house to pick Sarah up for dinner. I was preparing something in the kitchen. I went out to greet him. I extended my hand. He shook it, but his glance was quick, evaluating. He looked at the house, the old furniture, the walls that needed paint. He looked at me, my nurse uniform still on, my worn shoes. He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Nice to meet you, Mrs. Rose Peterson." He was polite, correct, but something in his tone made me uncomfortable. As if he were making an effort to be kind, as if being there were a bother. Sarah didn't notice or didn't want to notice. She was radiant, in love, happy. She told me they were going to meet David's parents, that it was important, that she wanted to make a good impression. She asked me for money to buy a new dress. I gave her what I had saved for the month. She hugged me. She told me I was the best mother in the world. After that dinner, things changed. Sarah started visiting me less. She always had plans with David, with David's family. She was always busy. When she came home, she didn't stay long. She looked at her phone constantly. She seemed anxious to leave. One day, I asked her if everything was okay. She told me yes, that she was just stressed with college, that David helped her relax, that his family was very kind to her. I believed her. I wanted to believe her. When she invited me to meet David's parents, I was excited. I thought it was a good sign that she would include me in that part of her life. I went to that house on a Saturday afternoon. It was enormous with perfect landscaping, with a fountain at the entrance with white columns. It looked like it was pulled from a magazine. I rang the doorbell. A housekeeper opened it. She led me into the living room. Everything was elegant. Leather sofas, large paintings on the walls, a crystal chandelier hanging from the ceiling. I felt small, out of place. Carol. David's mother came down the stairs. She was wearing a cream-colored dress. Discreet but expensive jewelry, heels, perfect makeup. She looked me up and down. "You must be Rose." It wasn't a question. It was an affirmation, an evaluation. "Yes, nice to meet you." "Thank you for having me." I extended my hand. She barely took it. 2 seconds. Then she let go and subtly wiped her fingers on her dress. "Sit down. Sarah will be right down." I sat down. She sat across from me. She offered me tea. I accepted. The housekeeper brought a tray with a porcelain teapot and delicate cups. Carol poured. She handed me a cup. I took it carefully. I was afraid of breaking it. "So, you're a nurse?" "Yes, I work at the General Hospital. That must be hard, a very sacrificial job." "It is, but I like helping people." "How noble." Her tone didn't sound like a compliment. It sounded like pity. Sarah arrived shortly after. She sat beside me. She took my hand. She smiled, but her smile was strained, nervous. Carol started talking about the family, about her husband's business, about the trips they took, about the clubs they belonged to. I nodded. I listened. I didn't have much to contribute. My life wasn't like that. At one point, Carol asked about Sarah's father. I told her he had died years ago, that I had raised her alone, that I had done the best I could. "That must have been so difficult for you, raising a daughter alone with such limited resources." The way she said limited resources burned me. As if it were a flaw, as if being poor were a sin. I did what I had to do. "Sarah never went without anything." "Of course." "It shows you love her very much." But there was something else in her tone, something I couldn't figure out at the time. Now I understand it. It was a warning. It was marked territory. It was her telling me that I didn't belong in that world, that Sarah was now on another level, and that I was the past. When I left that house, Sarah walked me to the car. I asked her what she thought of it. She told me it was fine, that Carol was very polite, that their family was wonderful, but something in her eyes told me she was lying, or maybe lying to herself. The following months were strange. Sarah started canceling plans with me, always with excuses that she had to study, that David had invited her to an event, that his family needed her for something. When I called her, sometimes she wouldn't answer. When I texted her, it took hours for her to respond. One day, I went to visit her without warning. I knocked on the door of her apartment. She opened it with a surprised look. She was dressed up, makeup on, ready to go out. "Mom, what are you doing here? I came to see you. I miss you." She looked back. I heard a male voice. David was there. "Now is not a good time. Mom, we're going out. I just wanted to spend a little time with you later." "Yes, I promise. I'll call you tomorrow." She closed the door. I stood in the hallway alone, confused, hurt, but I didn't say anything. I didn't want to be the mother who complains, the mother who suffocates. I thought it was just a phase, that it would pass. It didn't pass. They got married 2 years later. The wedding was at the Asdo family's country club. Everything was paid for by them. I just had to show up. Sarah told me not to worry about a thing, that Carol had taken care of everything. I felt useless, as if I couldn't even give my own daughter a wedding. On the day of the ceremony, I arrived early. I wanted to help with something, anything. But Carol already had everything under control. She had an army of employees. Everything was perfect. I just watched. When I asked Sarah if she needed anything, she said no, that I should just enjoy myself, that it was a happy day. But I didn't feel happy. I felt out of place, like just another guest, not like the mother of the bride. During the reception, I was seated at a table in the back, far from the main table. Sarah was there with David, with Carol, with the whole Asdo family. I was with people I didn't know, people who barely spoke to me. I looked at my daughter. She looked beautiful, radiant, happy. But when our eyes met, she quickly looked away as if she were embarrassed for me to see her. I cried that night alone in my house. I cried because I felt like I had lost my daughter, not to death, to something worse, to a life that didn't include me. The first months after the wedding, I tried to keep in touch. I called Sarah every week. Sometimes she answered, sometimes she didn't. When she did, the conversations were short, cold. She was always in a hurry. She always had something more important to do. I suggested we meet for lunch. She told me she was busy setting up the new house. David and she had moved into a residence his parents had given them. A 3-story house with a pool with a yard in the same neighborhood where Carol lived. 2 months passed before she invited me to see it. When I arrived, I was speechless. It was beautiful. Everything was new, modern, expensive. The furniture looked like it was taken out of a decorating magazine. The curtains were made of thick, elegant fabric. The floors gleamed. "This is beautiful, Sarah." "Thank you, Mom." Carol helped me decorate. She has very good taste. Of course she does. We toured the house. She showed me every room with pride. The kitchen with stainless steel appliances, the living room with the enormous television, the guest bedrooms. Everything was perfect. Too perfect. When we got to a closed room, I asked her what was in there. She told me it was David's study, that we couldn't go in because he was working. We went down to the living room. We sat down. We had coffee. We talked about superficial things, the weather, their plans for the garden. Nothing important. Nothing personal. I asked her how things were going with college. She had dropped out of medicine in her final year. She told me that David thought it wasn't necessary for her to work, that he earned enough, that she could dedicate herself to the house, to planning the future. "But you always wanted to be a doctor. Things change, Mom." Now I have other priorities. I didn't insist, but something hurt. All those years of effort, all those extra shifts. All those sacrifices for what? So she could give up her dream because her husband decided so. David came down from the study an hour later. He greeted me courteously. He asked how I was, but he didn't wait for my full answer. He poured himself coffee. He looked at his watch. "Sarah, don't forget we have dinner with my parents tonight." "I haven't forgotten. We need to leave in an hour." I understood the message. It was time for me to go. I said goodbye. Sarah walked me to the door. I told her I was happy to see her, that I missed her, that whenever she wanted, she could come visit me. "Yes, Mom. Soon." But she didn't come. The following months were a repetition. Short calls, brief texts, constant excuses. She was always busy. She always had plans, always with David's family. I tried not to take it personally. I tried to understand that she was building her own life, that it was normal, that all daughters pull away a little when they get married. But this was different. This wasn't natural distance. This was rejection. One day I saw her by chance. I was at the supermarket buying a few things. I saw her at the end of the aisle. She was with Carol. They were both pushing carts, laughing, talking. They looked comfortable, close. I walked up. I raised my hand to say hello. Sarah saw me. Her expression changed. The smile disappeared. She looked at Carol, then at me. She hesitated. "Mom, what a surprise." "Hello, my love, Carol. Good afternoon." Carol nodded. "Good afternoon, Rose." Her tone was cold, distant. "What a coincidence to run into you here." "Yes, we are buying some things for tomorrow's dinner. Some of David's friends are coming over." "How nice. I'm sure it will be delicious." There was an awkward silence. Sarah looked at the floor. Carol looked at her shopping list. I looked at my daughter, hoping she would say something, that she would invite me, that she would include me. She didn't. "Well, I won't bother you anymore. Take care. You too, Mom." I walked away. I felt their eyes on my back. I heard Carol say something in a low voice. I heard Sarah's laugh. I didn't understand the words, but the tone was clear. They were talking about me. I couldn't eat that night. I sat in the kitchen with the plate of cold food in front of me. I thought about the girl who hugged me every night, about the teenager who told me her secrets, about the young woman who told me I was her hero. Where had she gone? At what moment did I lose her? I decided to make one last attempt. I organized a dinner at my house. I called Sarah. I told her it had been too long since we spent time together, that I wanted to cook for her favorite dishes like before. There was a long pause. "I don't know, Mom. I have to check my schedule." "Please, Sarah. Just one night. Just the two of us, like before." "Okay, let me confirm with David." "Why do you have to confirm with him? It's just dinner with your mother." "Because we are married, Mom." "Decisions are made together." She hung up. I was left with the phone in my hand, feeling like I had said something wrong, feeling like I had crossed an invisible line. 2 days later, she texted me. She said she couldn't come, that David had planned something, that maybe next week. Next week never came. A month later, it was my birthday. 67 years old. I wasn't expecting much. Maybe a call, maybe a quick visit, something. Sarah called me in the morning. She wished me a happy birthday. She said she was busy, but would see me soon, that she loved me. She hung up before I could reply. I spent the day alone. Some neighbors came to greet me. A friend from the hospital brought me a small cake, but Sarah didn't show up. She didn't send me anything, just that 2-minute call. That night, as I blew out the candles on the cake alone in my kitchen, something broke inside me. It wasn't dramatic. I didn't cry. I just felt an emptiness, a resignation. The acceptance that I had lost my daughter. Or maybe I never truly had her. Maybe I only had her on loan until someone better came along. Someone with more money, more status, more of everything I could never give her. But then, 3 weeks later, my phone rang. It was Sarah. "Hello, Mom. How are you?" Her voice sounded different, cheerful, happy, the way I hadn't heard it in a long time. Fine, honey. What a surprise to hear from you. I wanted to tell you something. I'm pregnant. The world stopped. I was going to be a grandmother. My daughter was going to be a mother. I felt an explosion of emotions, joy, hope. Maybe this would bring us closer again. Maybe a baby would bring back my Sarah. Congratulations, my love. What wonderful news. I'm so happy for you. Thank you, Mom. We are very excited. We talked for a while longer. She told me about the doctor, about the symptoms, about how happy David was, about how Carol was already planning the baby shower. I hung up with a smile. The first in months. I thought things would get better, that this baby would be the bridge between us. But I was wrong. The pregnancy months were torture. Sarah kept me at a distance. When I asked about the doctor appointments, she told me Carol accompanied her. When I asked about the baby shower, she told me Carol was organizing it. When I asked if she needed anything, she told me Carol had already bought it. Carol, always Carol. I was the mother. I was the one who should have been there, but I had been replaced by a woman who had money, who had connections, who had everything I didn't have. I wasn't invited to the baby shower until the last minute. Sarah called me 2 days before. She said I could come if I wanted, that it would be at the club, that Carol had invited a lot of people. I went. I brought a gift, a baby outfit I had knitted myself. I had spent weeks making it, every stitch with love, with hope. When I arrived at the club, the party had already started. There were balloons, elegant decorations, tables with food, many women I didn't know, all elegant, all laughing, all around Sarah. I approached. I gave her my gift. She opened it. She looked at the knitted clothes. She smiled, but it was a polite smile, not genuine. Thank you, Mom. It's very sweet. She set it aside with the other gifts wrapped in expensive paper with perfect bows. My handmade knitted gift looked poor next to the others. I sat down at a table in the back. No one spoke to me. Everyone was busy. Sarah was surrounded. Carol was the perfect hostess. I was the shadow in the corner. I left before it ended. No one noticed my absence. When the baby was born, I found out by text message. Sarah texted me from the hospital. 3 words. It's a girl. There was no call, no video, just a cold message, as if she were notifying me of something unimportant. I replied immediately. I asked how she was, how the baby was, if I could come visit them. She left me on read. 2 hours later, she texted me again. She said they were fine, that the baby's name was Emily, that they would rest for a few days, that she would let me know when I could go. 5 days passed. 5 days when I couldn't sleep. 5 days when I imagined my granddaughter, her little face, her small hands, her eyes. 5 days when I dreamed of holding her, of singing to her, of being part of her life. When I finally went to the hospital, Sarah had already been discharged. She had gone home. She hadn't let me know. I had to call her to find out. I went straight to her house. I rang the doorbell. David opened it. He looked tired, dark circles under his eyes, but his expression when he saw me was not welcoming. It was annoyance. Rose, I didn't know you were coming. I came to meet my granddaughter. He hesitated. He looked inside. I heard voices. I recognized Carol's voice. Sarah is resting. Maybe another day would be better. Please. Just a moment. I've waited so long. He sighed. He stepped aside. I went in. The house smelled like flowers. There were floral arrangements everywhere. Balloons, cards, gifts piled up in the living room. Carol was sitting on the sofa. She was holding the baby. She was rocking her gently, singing softly. When she saw me, she stopped. She looked at me with that expression I already knew, that mixture of pity and superiority. Rose, what a surprise. I came to meet my granddaughter. She looked at the baby in her arms, then at me. She made no move to hand her over. She's sleeping. Better not to bother her. I just want to see her. Sarah appeared from the stairs. She looked tired, messy hair, but when she saw me, her expression tensed. Mom, I didn't know you were coming today. I texted you this morning. I didn't see the message. She was lying. I knew it, but I didn't say anything. I walked up to Carol. I held out my arms. She hesitated. She looked at Sarah. Sarah nodded slightly. Carol passed the baby to me carefully, as if she didn't trust me to hold her correctly. I took Emily in my arms. She was perfect. Small, soft, her eyes closed, her pink lips. I felt my heart melt. I felt that all the pain of the last months was worth it just for this moment. She's beautiful, Sarah. Thank you. Her voice was distant, cold, as if she were talking to a stranger. I held Emily for only 5 minutes. Carol took her from me. She said it was time to feed her. That Sarah needed to rest, that maybe it was better if I left. I left heartbroken with empty arms, with the feeling that not even my granddaughter belonged to me. The following weeks were the same. I called to ask about the baby. Sarah answered in monosyllables. Fine, sleeping, eating, nothing more. I proposed visiting them. There was always an excuse that the baby was asleep, that they had visitors, that Sarah was tired, that maybe another day. One day I went by her house without warning. I brought clothes I had bought for Emily, small, soft clothes with little animal drawings. I had spent more than I could afford, but I wanted my granddaughter to have something from me. I rang the doorbell. No one opened. I heard voices inside, laughter, the baby crying. I rang again, louder. Finally, the door opened. It was Sarah. She was holding Emily in her arms. Behind her were Carol and Mary, Sarah's sister-in-law, and Celeste, David's sister. All there. A family gathering to which I had not been invited. Mom, what are you doing here? I came to bring this for Emily. I held out the bag. Sarah took it without looking. Thanks, but we're busy right now. I just wanted to see her for a moment. Now is not a good time. I tried to look over her shoulder. Carol looked at me with that expression. That one that said I wasn't welcome, that I didn't belong. It's okay. I understand. I turned around. I walked toward my car. I heard the door close behind me. I heard the laughter start again, as if my presence had been a bothersome interruption. That night, something changed in me. It wasn't sadness. It wasn't anger. It was clarity. A cold, crystal-clear clarity that made me see the truth. Sarah didn't want me in her life. I was an embarrassment, a reminder of a poor past, of a life she wanted to forget. I didn't fit into her new world, in her elegant house, in her perfect family, in her life designed by Carol. But I hadn't done anything wrong. I had only loved. I had sacrificed. I had given everything. And now they were throwing me out like trash. No more. That night, I searched my desk. I took out papers, documents. I reviewed my will, the will I had made years ago, where I left everything to Sarah, the house, the savings, the life insurance, everything. I read it all. Every line, every word, and I felt rage. Rage that everything I had was going to end up in the hands of a daughter who treated me as if I didn't exist. I picked up my phone. I looked up a number, the lawyer who had drafted my will. I called him. I left a message. I want to make changes urgent. Then I looked up another number, a private investigator. A friend from the hospital had told me about him years ago. She said he was discreet, professional, that he got information others couldn't. I called him too. I left another message. I need your services. It's personal. I hung up. I left the phone on the table. I looked toward the window. The night was dark, silent, but I no longer felt scared. I no longer felt sad. I felt awake for the first time in years, as if I had been asleep and finally opened my eyes. The next day, the detective called me. We met at a discreet coffee shop. He was an older man with tired but attentive eyes. He introduced himself as Adam Reed. Tell me what you need, Mrs. Peterson. I told him everything about Sarah, about how she treated me, about the suspicions I had, about how I wanted to know the truth. I wanted to know if there was something else, if there were lies, if there were secrets. Adam listened in silence. He took notes. He nodded. When I finished, he closed his notebook. I understand. I can help you, but I need you to be sure. Once you know the truth, there's no turning back. I'm sure. He asked me for information, names, addresses, numbers. I gave him everything. He told me he would contact me in 2 weeks, that he would be discreet, that no one would know. I paid the retainer $500. A significant part of my savings, but I didn't care. I needed to know. Meanwhile, I went to see the lawyer, Leo Peterson, a serious man in a gray suit with a tidy office. I explained that I wanted to change my will. Are you sure, Mrs. Peterson? It's an important decision. I have never been more sure. I dictated the changes to him. I wanted a portion to go to charitable institutions, to hospitals, to homes for children, to places that truly helped. I didn't want everything to go to Sarah. Not when she treated me like this. Leo drafted the new document. He read it to me. I signed it. It was filed, legal, official. I left that office feeling something strange. It wasn't happiness. It wasn't satisfaction. It was control. For the first time in a long time, I was in control of my own life. The 2 weeks passed slowly. Sarah didn't call me. She didn't text me. I didn't either. I let the silence grow. I let the distance become greater. When Adam finally called me, my heart beat faster. We met at the same coffee shop. He carried a thick folder. He put it on the table. I found several things, Mrs. Peterson. Some of them are going to hurt. He opened the folder. There were photos, documents, printouts of messages. He began to explain. Sarah had been lying about many things, about money, about her expenses, about what she told David's family about me. There were screenshots of conversations where Sarah talked about me with her friends, where she said I was a burden, that I embarrassed her, that she wished she had a mother like Carol, with money, with class, with elegance. I read every word, every message, every lie. I felt something inside me freeze. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just read, absorbed, understood. There's more, Adam said. He showed me bank statements. Sarah had been using my name. She had opened credit cards in my name without my knowledge. She had bought things, many things, and she had never paid. My credit was ruined. I had debts I didn't know existed, all because of her lifestyle, to keep up appearances in front of David's family. I felt the ground move under my feet. All this time I had thought she was just ignoring me, that she was just setting me aside. But it was worse. She was using me. She was stealing from me. She was destroying me. I left that coffee shop with the folder under my arm. I walked to my car. I sat down. I closed the door. And then only then did I let the tears come out. I cried for the daughter I had lost, for the mother I had been for all the years, wasted believing that love was enough, but the tears didn't last long. 10 minutes, maybe 15, then they dried up, and what remained was something harder, colder, more determined. I wasn't going to let this stand. I wasn't going to be the silent victim. No more. I drove straight to the bank. I asked to speak to the manager. I showed him the documents Adam had given me. I explained the situation. He reviewed everything with a serious expression. This is fraud, Mrs. Peterson. You can press charges. I don't want to press charges. Not yet. I just want to protect myself. The manager helped me block my credit to cancel the cards Sarah had opened to put alerts on all my accounts. He explained that the debts could be disputed, that there was a legal process, that it would take time, but it was possible to clear my name. Do it. Everything, no matter how long it takes. I also closed the joint accounts I had with Sarah, old accounts from when she was a student, accounts I had never closed because I thought they might be useful someday. Now I saw that they had only been useful to her to steal from me. The manager suggested I open a new account at another bank, with passwords only I knew with additional security measures. I did it all. I transferred my savings, everything that was left. It wasn't much after so many years of helping Sarah. But it was mine and no one else would touch it. When I left the bank, I felt different, lighter, as if I had taken off a weight I didn't know I was carrying. But the plan was just beginning, because now I had information, I had proof, and I had something more important. I had a purpose. That night, I sat in my kitchen. I spread all the papers on the table, the photos, the messages, the bank statements, the will documents, everything. I started making a plan. Not a plan of blind revenge. A calculated plan. Cold, precise. Because if I was going to do this, I would do it right. I would do it in a way that Sarah could never recover, in a way that everyone would see who she really was. I took a notebook. I started writing. Step 1, Step 2, Step 3. Every detail, every move. Nothing could go wrong. The key element was the timing. I needed the perfect moment. A moment where Sarah was surrounded by the people who mattered most to her. The people whose opinion she valued more than mine. Her in-laws, the Atados. I checked Sarah's social media, something I rarely did because it hurt to see her perfect life. Her smiling photos, her posts about how happy she was. Always with David, always with Emily, always with Carol, never with me. But now I didn't look with sadness. I looked with strategy. I was looking for information. I was looking for the perfect moment, and I found it. In 3 weeks, it would be Sarah's birthday, 36 years old. There was an old post where she mentioned that she always wanted a big party for that age, that it was special, that it was the beginning of a new phase. I bet Carol would organize something for her. It was her style to control, to organize, to be the perfect hostess. And I bet I wouldn't be invited. Or if I was, it would be last minute. Like an obligation, like a formality. I waited, I watched. Sarah didn't call me. She didn't text me, nothing, as if I didn't exist. 2 weeks before her birthday, I decided to call her myself. I needed to know if my assumptions were correct. Hello, Sarah. How are you? Fine, Mom. Busy. How is Emily? Fine. Growing. The conversation was painful, forced, but I continued. Your birthday is coming up. Yes. Almost here. Do you have plans? There was a pause. A pause, I knew. I always knew when she was lying since she was a child. Her voice would change. It would get higher faster. Well, I would love to see you that day. Bring you your gift. Another pause. I don't know if I'll be available, Mom. You know, with the baby, with everything. I understand. I hung up. I smiled. It was exactly what I expected. There was a party and I wasn't invited. I called Adam. I asked him to investigate further to find out where the party would be, who would attend, what time, all the details. 2 days later, he called me with the information. The party would be at Sarah's house. Carol had organized it. There would be about 30 people. The whole Asavdo family. David's friends, Sarah's new friends, important people, people with money, people Sarah wanted to impress. Perfect. It was perfect. Everyone I needed would be there. Everyone who had to see the truth. Everyone who thought Sarah was perfect. Everyone who had ignored me. Everyone who had treated me as if I were invisible. Now came the delicate part. The gift. I needed a gift that Sarah couldn't refuse in front of everyone. A gift that would be impossible to ignore. A gift that would show how much I had loved her, how much I had sacrificed. I went to the bank. I spoke with the manager. I told him I needed a certified check for $15,000. Everything I had left of my savings after paying the debts Sarah had created in my name. The manager looked at me with concern. Mrs. Peterson, are you sure? That's all your money. I'm sure, but I need it to be certified, and I need it to have a special clause. I explained what I needed. That the check could be canceled with a single call from me, that it had a special code, that it would only be active for a limited period of time. The manager helped me arrange it. He gave me the check. I looked at it. $15,000 written in black ink, firm, real. But I knew that check would never be cashed because that check was just the hook, the bait, the way to get where I needed to go. I bought an elegant envelope, white, simple. I put the check inside. I sealed it. I wrote Sarah's name on the front in my best handwriting. Then I called Adam again. I asked him for one last favor. I needed everything to be ready for the day of the party. All the proof, organized, digitalized, ready to be sent. He asked me if I was sure, if I understood that there was no turning back, that once I did this, the relationship with my daughter would end forever. It's already over, Adam. It ended a long time ago. I just didn't want to see it. I also called Leo, my lawyer. I asked him to prepare copies of the legal documents, the new will, the bank records, the proof of fraud, everything legalized, everything certified, everything ready to be used if necessary. The days before the birthday were strange. I felt calm, a calm I hadn't felt in years, as if I had finally made a decision and my whole body agreed. I didn't sleep much, but when I did, I didn't have nightmares. I only dreamed of the moment of Sarah's face when everything exploded, of Carol's expression, of David's shock. I practiced in front of the mirror. I practiced my expression, my tone of voice. I needed to be calm, serene. I couldn't show anger. I couldn't show pain, only disappointment, only controlled sadness, because that was the key. Not to seem vengeful, to seem hurt, to seem like the mother who had been rejected, the victim, because that's what I was. Only now, the victim was going to defend herself. The day before the birthday, I reviewed everything one last time. The envelope with the check, my phone with the bank number dialed and ready, Adam's number on speed dial. Everything had to be perfect. Everything had to work. I tried on several dresses. I needed to look good, but not too dressed up. I didn't want Sarah to think I had made a special effort. I wanted to look like myself, simple, humble, the mother I had always been. I chose a gray dress, simple with a cardigan, comfortable shoes, nothing flashy. Nothing that would steal attention because I wasn't going to be the center of attention when I arrived. I was going to be invisible as always, only this time that invisibility was intentional. It was part of the plan. The night before the birthday, I could barely eat. Not because of nerves, because of anticipation, because of the certainty that tomorrow everything would change, that tomorrow the truth would finally come to light. I went to bed early. I set the alarm. I needed to be rested. I needed to be lucid. I needed to have all my energy for what was coming. I closed my eyes. I thought of Sarah as a child. How she hugged me. How she told me she loved me. How she promised we would always be together. And I thought of the woman she had become. Of the woman who would push me out the door tomorrow. Of the woman who didn't know what she was about to lose. I fell asleep with that image, knowing that tomorrow, for the first time in a long time, I would have the power. I would have the control. I would have the last word. And no one, absolutely no one, could stop me. I woke up at 7 a.m. The sun was just beginning to stream through the window. I stayed in bed for a few minutes, breathing, preparing myself. Today was the day. I got up. I showered. I got dressed in the gray dress I had chosen. I did my hair simply, a little makeup, just enough not to look tired, but not too much. I needed to look like myself. Like the mother Sarah could ignore without remorse. I ate a light breakfast, black coffee, toast. My stomach was tight, but I needed to have energy. I needed to be completely alert. I checked the envelope once more. It was there. Sealed with the check for $15,000 inside. I held it in my hands. I thought of everything it represented. All the money I had left, all the sacrifice of years, all concentrated on a piece of paper that would never be cashed. I put the envelope in my purse. I checked my phone. The battery was full. The bank number was saved. Adam's number too. Everything ready? I left the house at 5 o'clock in the afternoon. According to Adam's information, the party started at 6 o'clock. Guests would arrive between 6 o'clock and 6:30. Carol would be there early, helping to prepare everything. David would be greeting people. Sarah would be getting ready. Everything would be perfect, elegant, controlled. I would arrive exactly at 6 o'clock before the other guests. Just when everything was ready, but before the party really started. The perfect moment to be rejected. The perfect moment for Sarah to show her true colors. I drove slowly, 40 minutes that felt like 4. The streets were quiet. It was Sunday. The house was more awake than ever. I arrived at the house at 6:02. A car was already parked. Carol's perfect. She would be inside. She would witness everything. Maybe she would even be the one to tell Sarah to make me leave. Even better. I parked in front of the house. I took the envelope. I took a deep breath. I got out of the car. I walked toward the door. Each step firm. Each step calculated. There was no turning back. I rang the doorbell. I heard hurried footsteps. The door opened. It was Sarah. She was wearing a pretty dress, wine-colored, makeup on, hair done. She looked beautiful. For a second, just a second, my heart softened. It was my daughter, my baby. But then I saw her expression, and the moment broke. "Mom, what are you doing here?" The same words as always, the same tone, as if my presence were a mistake, an invasion. "I came to drop off your present, my love. Happy birthday." I held out the envelope. She didn't take it. She just stared at me. Then she looked back. I heard Carol's voice from inside. I heard soft music. I heard the clinking of glasses. Everything was prepared. Sarah stepped out onto the porch. She closed the door behind her. Her face showed panic, shame, contained anger. "Please, Mom. My mother-in-law is here with my husband's family. The table is set. I can't possibly host you right now." Every word was a stab, but I kept my calm. I kept my expression gentle, hurt, confused. "I just wanted to give you this. I won't stay. I just wanted to see you on your day." Sarah snatched the envelope from my hands. She didn't open it. She didn't ask what it was. She just held it against her chest. She looked at me with impatience, with the urgency for me to leave. "We'll talk later, Mom. Thanks for coming." She put her hand on my shoulder. She gently pushed me toward the steps. I backed up. I let her push me. I let her usher me out. I let her close the door in my face. I stood there for a few seconds, looking at that closed door, listening to the lock engage, listening to Sarah go back inside, listening to someone ask who it was, and I heard Sarah's answer clear, loud, without remorse. No one important, just someone who had the wrong house. I smiled. There it was. The confirmation, the final proof that I had made the right decision. I walked to my car, slow, calm. I sat down. I closed the door. I put my hands on the steering wheel. I breathed. Then I took out my phone. I dialed the bank number. They answered on the second ring. "Mrs. Peterson, how can we help you? I need to cancel the certified check I issued yesterday. Reference code 7739. There was typing on the other end, then a confirmation. "Check canceled, Mrs. Peterson. It can no longer be cashed." "Thank you." I hung up. I dialed the second number. "Adam!" He answered immediately. "Do it. Send everything now." "Understood, Mrs. Peterson." I hung up. I left the phone on my lap. I looked toward the house. The lights were on. Everything looked warm, welcoming, perfect from the outside. But inside right now, phones were starting to ring. Messages were starting to arrive. Notifications were starting to blow up. Adam was sending everything. All the proof, all the documents, all the messages to a group he had created. A group that included Carol, David's siblings, the sisters-in-law, close friends, everyone who was in that house right now. A group simply called The Truth About Sarah Peterson. I imagine the scene. Phones vibrating, one after another, people looking at their screens, confusion, shock. Carol opening the first message, seeing the screenshots, reading what Sarah said about me, about her, about everyone. David seeing the bank statements, seeing the fraud, seeing the debts, seeing how his wife had used my name, my credit, my life. Everyone seeing the photos, the documents, the irrefutable proof of who the woman they were celebrating really was. I waited 5 minutes. 10, 15. My phone started to vibrate. Sarah, I didn't answer. It kept vibrating. David, I didn't answer. Unknown numbers. I didn't answer. I let it ring. I let it vibrate. I let it fill up with missed calls, messages, desperate pleas, explanations. At 20 minutes, I saw movement in the house. The door opened. Someone ran out. It was Sarah. Messy hair, crying, screaming my name. Mom. Mom, wait. She ran toward my car. She pounded on the window. I looked at her, but I didn't open it. I didn't roll down the window. I just looked at her with the same expression she had given me so many times. The expression of indifference, of coldness. Please, Mom, I need to talk to you. Please. Behind her, David came out. He looked furious, confused, betrayed. He was yelling something. Sarah turned around. She yelled back at him. They started arguing right there in the driveway in front of everyone. Carol appeared in the doorway, her perfect expression finally broken. She looked horrified, disappointed, humiliated. More people came out. The guests, all with their phones in hand, all looking at Sarah, all whispering, all judging. The perfect party had turned into a disaster, and I was watching it from my car, calm, serene, at peace. I started the engine. Sarah kept pounding on my window. She kept screaming, but I put the car in reverse. I backed out slowly. She had to move away. She stood in the middle of the street, crying, yelling, destroyed. I looked in the rearview mirror one last time. I saw the whole scene, the chaos, the shame, the truth finally exposed. And I kept driving without looking back, without regret, without pain, only with the certainty that I had done the right thing, that I had recovered my dignity, that I had stopped being invisible. I arrived home and went inside without haste. I left the keys on the hall table. I took off my shoes. I poured myself a glass of water. My hands weren't trembling. My breathing was steady, calm, as if I had just returned from grocery shopping and not from detonating a bomb in my daughter's life. The phone kept vibrating nonstop. I left it on the kitchen table. I looked at it as if it were a foreign object. The notifications kept coming. Missed calls. Text messages, WhatsApp messages. All from Sarah, some from David, some from numbers I didn't recognize, probably his family members, probably friends wanting to understand what was happening. I sat down on the living room sofa. I turned on the small lamp next to the window. The house was silent, a different silence than on other nights. It wasn't the silence of loneliness. It was the silence of a fulfilled decision. The silence that comes after closing a door that should never have been left open for so long. I thought about what was happening at Sarah's house right now. I imagined the faces of all those elegant guests. I imagined Carol trying to maintain her composure as she read every message, every screenshot where Sarah spoke of her with disdain, where she mocked her advice, where she said she only tolerated her because she had money and connections. I imagined David discovering that his perfect wife had committed fraud using his own mother-in-law's name, that she had ruined my credit to buy things he thought came out of his own income, that she had lied about so many things, that now he wouldn't even know what was true and what was a lie in their marriage. I imagined David's siblings, the sisters-in-law, who had always treated Sarah like one of the family, discovering that she called them pretentious and superficial in private messages, that she laughed at their lives, that she used them only to climb socially. And above all, I imagined Sarah standing in the middle of her perfectly decorated living room in her pretty dress with her makeup smeared with tears, watching as everything she had built crumbled in a matter of minutes, watching as the mask she had worn for years finally fell off and there was no way to put it back on. My phone stopped vibrating for a moment. Silence. Then it started again. This time it was a video call. Sarah, I rejected the call immediately. She called again. I rejected it again. She called a third time, a fourth, a fifth. I turned off the phone. The silence returned. Complete. Absolute. Liberating. I got up and went to the kitchen. I made tea. Chamomile tea. The same one I used to make for Sarah when she was a child and couldn't sleep. When she had nightmares, when she was sick, when she needed me. I sat at the kitchen table with the hot cup in my hands. I looked at the photos on the refrigerator, old photos held up with magnets. Sarah as a child in her school uniform, Sarah at her high school graduation, Sarah the day she was accepted into college. Tomorrow those photos would come down, not out of anger, not out of vengeance, simply because they no longer represented the person she was now. And I needed to stop living in the past. I needed to stop clinging to the daughter I had and accept that that child no longer existed. The night moved slowly. I didn't turn on the television. I didn't put on music. I just stayed there in my house, in my space, feeling something heavy finally lift from my shoulders. Something I had carried for years without realizing the weight of it. I thought about all the times I had justified Sarah's behavior. All the times I had told myself she was busy, that she had her own life, that it was normal for her to drift away. All the lies I had told myself to avoid. Facing the truth that my daughter simply no longer wanted me in her life. I thought about all the nights I had cried alone, wondering what I had done wrong, at what point I had lost her, if I had been too strict or too permissive, if I had worked too much or not enough, if I had been too humble or not ambitious enough. But now I understood that it hadn't been my fault, that I had done everything a mother could do, that I had given everything I had, and that sometimes that is simply not enough. Not because it lacks value, but because the other person chose not to receive it. At 11 o'clock that night, I turned on my phone. There were 132 missed calls, 87 text messages, 43 WhatsApp messages. I didn't open them. I didn't read them. I just saw the numbers. Desperation converted into a statistic. There was a message from Adam. I opened it. It was the only one I wanted to read. Everything sent as we agreed. The documents were received by all contacts on the list. Several have already responded asking for more information. Some expressed shock, others indignation. The job is done, Mrs. Peterson. I hope you find the peace you were looking for. I replied with a simple, thank you. Then I turned off the phone again. I got ready for bed. I put on my pajamas. I washed my face. I brushed my teeth. Simple routines that suddenly felt different, lighter, as if every movement were easier without the weight of constant disappointment. I lay down. I turned off the lights. I closed my eyes, and for the first time in years, I slept all night without waking up, without nightmares, without anxiety, just a deep and restful sleep. I woke up with the sun streaming through the window. It was 8 o'clock in the morning. I had slept 9 hours straight, something I hadn't done since before Sarah got married. I stretched. I felt rested, renewed. I turned on the phone. More missed calls, more messages, but now there was something different. There were messages from people I didn't expect, friends from the hospital who had heard something, neighbors, acquaintances, all asking if I was okay, if I needed anything. There was a message from Mary, one of Sarah's sisters-in-law. I opened it. Mrs. Rose Peterson, I don't know if I should be writing to you, but I need you to know that none of us had any idea how Sarah was treating you. What we read last night left us in shock. David is devastated. Carol hasn't left her room. The party ended in a disaster. Sarah won't stop crying, but honestly, after seeing all that, I think you did the right thing. No one deserves to be treated like that, especially not by their own daughter. I hope you are well. I read the message twice, then I deleted it. Not because it bothered me, but because I no longer needed anyone's validation. I already knew I had done the right thing. I didn't need others to confirm it for me. Days passed. The phone kept ringing, but less and less frequently. Sarah called less. Her messages became longer, more desperate, more pleading. She told me David was furious that Carol wasn't speaking to her, that the family knew everything, that her friends had blocked her, that her life was destroyed, that she needed my help, that she had always been my daughter, that she had always loved me, even if she didn't show it. I read every message, every word, every plea, and I felt nothing, neither satisfaction nor sadness nor anger. Only an emptiness where there was once pain, an emptiness that was slowly filling with something better, with peace, with dignity, with self-love. I didn't reply to any messages. I didn't return any calls because I had nothing to say to her. Everything I needed to say, I had already said with actions, with consequences, with the truth exposed under the light where it could no longer hide. A week after the birthday, I received a certified letter. It was from David. I opened it. It was a formal apology. It said he knew nothing of the fraud, that he had initiated divorce proceedings, that he had spoken with his lawyers about how to help me clear my credit, that he was very sorry for everything that had happened, that I didn't deserve to be treated like that. I put the letter away. I didn't reply, not because I didn't appreciate the gesture, but because I no longer needed apologies from people who had been part of the problem, who had been there when Sarah rejected me and hadn't said anything, who had enjoyed their perfect family while I was outside in the cold. 2 weeks after Sarah's birthday, I received a call from Leo Peterson, my lawyer. He asked me to come to his office. There was something important we needed to review. I went that same afternoon. When I entered his office, Leo had several documents on his desk. He asked me to sit down. His expression was serious, but there was something in his eyes that looked like professional satisfaction. Mrs. Peterson, I have been working on your case since you authorized me. I have good news. We have managed to dispute all the debts your daughter created in your name. The banks have accepted that it was fraud. Your credit will be completely cleared in the next 30 days. Also, David Asdo has agreed to compensate you for the damages. He doesn't want this to become more public than it already is. He is offering $25,000 as compensation. $25,000, more than I had lost, more than I had given. I looked at Leo and nodded. I accept, but I want everything legally documented. I want him to sign that this is compensation for the fraud committed by his wife. I want it to be clear that it is not a gift. It is a restitution. Of course, I already have the documents prepared. He will sign tomorrow. The money will be transferred to your new account within a week. There was something else on Leo's desk. A thick manila envelope. I pointed to it with my gaze. He picked it up and handed it to me. This arrived 3 days ago. It's from your daughter. She asked me to deliver it to you personally. She said you won't answer her calls, that you won't read her messages, that this was her last option. I took the envelope. It was heavy. I could feel that there were many pages inside. I held it in my hands without opening it. You don't have to read it now if you don't want to. You can take it with you, or you can leave it here. You decide. I took it with me, but I didn't open it. I left it on my kitchen table for 3 days. I looked at it every time I passed by. I knew what it probably said. Apologies. Explanations, justifications, please. Everything she hadn't been able to say to me in person for years. On the 4th day, I opened it. It was 12 pages written by hand. Sarah's handwriting. That handwriting I knew so well. That handwriting I had seen on school assignments, on birthday cards, on notes she left on the refrigerator when she was a teenager. I started reading. Mom, I don't know where to start. I don't know how to explain everything I did to you. I know there's no excuse, I know there's no justification, but I need you to understand how I got here. The letter continued. She told me things she had never told me. How she had felt inferior when she met David's family. How Carol had made comments to her about my job, about my clothes, about my house. How she had told her that if she wanted to be part of that family, She needed to leave her humble past behind. How little by little she had started to feel ashamed of me, of our life, of everything I represented. How that shame had turned into resentment. How that resentment had led her to push me away, to hide me, to pretend I didn't exist. She told me about the debts, how she had started by using my name for one small card, just one, to buy a dress that Carol had told her she needed for an event. How that had turned into 2 cards, then 3, then more. How she had lost control, how she never had the courage to confess it to me. The letter went on, page after page of confessions, of regret, of pain. She said that now she had lost everything, that David had filed for divorce, that Carol wouldn't speak to her, that her in-laws had disowned her, that her friends had abandoned her, that she was alone, completely alone. And that now she understood how I had felt all those years. Now she understood what it was like to be invisible, to be rejected, to be treated as if you didn't matter, and that it was the worst pain she had ever felt in her life. The letter ended with a plea. She asked for my forgiveness. She didn't expect me to forgive her. She didn't expect us to have a relationship again. She just wanted me to know that she was sorry, that if she could go back in time, she would do everything differently. That I had been the best mother anyone could ever have, and that she had been the worst daughter. I finished reading. I folded the pages. I put them back in the envelope. I sat in the kitchen with the letter in front of me. I waited to feel something. I waited for my heart to soften, for the tears to come, for forgiveness to appear. But nothing happened. I just felt tired. Tired of so much pain, of so much disappointment, of so many years waiting for Sarah to be the child she had been again. I put the letter in a drawer. I didn't destroy it. I didn't throw it away. I simply put it away. Maybe someday I would read it again. Maybe someday I would feel something different. But today was not that day. The following week, David's money arrived in my account, $25,000. I looked at the digital statement. Numbers on a screen, but numbers that represented my freedom, my security, my future. I called Leo. I asked him to prepare the final documentation for the will. I wanted to make sure everything was in order, that everything was clear, that there was no way Sarah could claim anything when I was gone. The new will left 50% of everything to charitable institutions, hospitals, homes for orphan children, women's shelters, places that truly helped. The other 50% was placed in a trust for Emily, my granddaughter. But with a condition. She could only access that money when she turned 25 years old, and only if she maintained a relationship with me until that moment. If I died before she turned 25, the money would also be donated. Sarah would not see a cent, no matter what happened, no matter how much, she pleaded. That was my final decision. Leo asked me if I was completely sure. I told him I had never been more sure of anything. I signed. It was legalized, final, irreversible. I left that office feeling lighter than ever. I no longer had anything that Sarah could take from me. I no longer had anything she could use. She no longer had power over me. And that was the greatest freedom I had ever experienced. Days turned into weeks. Sarah's calls became less frequent, her messages more spaced out. Eventually, they stopped coming. Maybe she had finally understood. Maybe she had finally accepted that there was no turning back. I heard through acquaintances that Sarah had moved, that she had left the big house, that she was living in a small apartment with Emily, that David was giving her minimal alimony, that she had tried to look for work, but her reputation was ruined. No one in the circles she moved in wanted to hire her. No one wanted to associate with her. I heard she had had to sell many of her things, the jewelry David had given her, the expensive bags, the designer shoes, all to be able to pay the rent, all to survive. Part of me expected to feel satisfaction, but I didn't. I only felt a distant sadness. Like when you hear about the misfortune of someone you knew a long time ago, but who is no longer part of your life. A month later, I received a package. It had no sender, only my address. I opened it carefully. Inside was a small box, and inside the box, the outfit I had knitted for Emily, the one I had brought to the baby shower, the one Sarah had set aside as if it were worthless. There was a note. It wasn't signed, but I recognized the handwriting. It was from Sarah. I don't deserve your forgiveness, but Emily deserves to know her grandmother. Someday when she's older, I'll tell her the truth. I'll tell her how her grandmother was the strongest woman I ever knew, and how I was too blind to see it in time. I'm returning this because I finally understood its value. It's not just clothes. It's love knitted by hand. It's time. It's sacrifice. It's everything you gave me and that I wasted. I hope someday you can use it with another baby who does value what it means to come from you. I folded the note. I put it away with the letter. I held the knitted outfit in my hands. All those hours I had spent making it. Every stitch thinking of my granddaughter, how she would look, how I would hold her, how I would be part of her life. But that wasn't going to happen. At least not now. Maybe never. And I needed to accept it. I put the outfit in a box along with the old photos I had taken down from the refrigerator, along with the memories of a daughter who no longer existed. I closed the box. I put it in the attic. I didn't throw it away. I didn't destroy it. I just put it away. Because that's what you do with the past. You put it away. You accept it, and you move on. 6 months passed since Sarah's birthday. 6 months since everything exploded. 6 months since I recovered my dignity. Life had changed. I had changed. I looked in the mirror and saw a different woman. Not younger, not physically stronger, but different in something deeper. In the eyes, in the posture, in the way I breathed. I had started doing things I had never done. I joined a book club at the neighborhood library. I met other women my age, women with their own stories, their own pains, their own victories. We met on Tuesday afternoons, we drank coffee, we talked about books, about life, about everything and nothing. One of them was named Emily. She was 70 years old. She had lost her husband 2 years ago. She told me that after his death, she had discovered that he had had another family for 20 years, that he had lived a double life, that everything she thought she knew was a lie. She told me that the worst part hadn't been the betrayal. It had been realizing that she had wasted so much time being invisible, being small, accepting crumbs when she deserved the full banquet. We understood each other without needing to say much more. That silent understanding that only exists between women who have been through the fire and come out on the other side. I started traveling. Small things. A weekend at the beach, 3 days in the mountains, places I had always wanted to see but never went because I was waiting. Waiting for Sarah to have time. Waiting for her to invite me. Waiting to be included. I no longer waited for anything from anyone, only from myself. I renovated my house. I painted the walls. I changed the old furniture. I bought new curtains, plants, pictures I liked, not because they were expensive or elegant, but because they made me happy when I looked at them. The house stopped being a museum of painful memories. It became my space, my refuge, my true home. One afternoon in April, while watering the balcony plants, my phone rang. It was an unknown number. I hesitated, but something made me answer. The voice on the other end was trembling, insecure. "Mrs. Peterson, this is Mary Asdo, Sarah's sister-in-law. I know you might not want to talk to me, but I need to tell you something." I waited in silence. She continued, "Sarah is in the hospital. She had a nervous breakdown 3 days ago. She's stable, but the doctors say she needs support. David isn't coming. Carol isn't either. I've been with her because someone has to take care of Emily, but I thought you should know." I felt something move in my chest, but it wasn't what I expected. It wasn't urgency. It wasn't desperation to run to her side. It was a strange calm, a clarity. "Thank you for letting me know, Mary. But Sarah made her choices. Now she has to live with them, just like I had to live with mine when she left me out. When she pushed me, when she made me invisible, there was a long silence. Then Mary spoke again. Her voice was soft, understanding. I understand. I just wanted you to know, just in case. Take care, Mrs. Peterson. You deserve all the peace in the world. I hung up. I stayed standing on the balcony with the phone in my hand. I looked toward the horizon. The sun was beginning to set. The sky was painted in oranges and pinks. It was beautiful. And I was here alive, free, at peace. That was enough. I didn't feel guilt for not going to the hospital. I didn't feel remorse. I only felt the confirmation that I had made the right decision. Because love is not enough when it is not reciprocated. Sacrifice is not a virtue when it destroys you. And being a mother does not mean allowing yourself to be trampled. I slept peacefully that night. I dreamed of my husband, of the man I had loved, Sarah's father. In the dream, we were young again. He took my hand and told me he was proud of me, that I had done the right thing, that it was time for me to live for myself. I woke up with tears on my cheeks, but they were tears of liberation, not of sadness. In the following months, I continued building my new life. I started volunteering at the hospital where I had worked, not as a nurse. I was already retired, but helping in other areas, accompanying patients who had no family, reading to them, listening to them, giving them what I would have liked to receive, presents, attention, dignity. One afternoon, while walking in the park near my house, I saw a young woman sitting on a bench. She was crying silently. She was holding a baby in her arms. The baby was sleeping peacefully, oblivious to her mother's pain. I approached. I asked her if she was okay, if she needed help. She looked at me with red eyes. She told me she didn't know what to do, that her family had rejected her for having the baby without being married, that she was alone, that she was scared. I sat down next to her. I didn't give her advice. I didn't tell her everything would be fine. I just stayed there, present, listening to her. Sometimes that's all anyone needs to know, that they are not completely alone. When she calmed down, I gave her my number. I told her that if she needed anything at all, she could call me. She thanked me with a trembling smile. I don't know if she will ever call, but if she does, I'll be there because that's who I am. A woman who knows what pain is, who knows what it is to be rejected, but who also knows what it is to get up, recover dignity, choose herself. 9 months have passed since that night. 9 months since they pushed me out the door. 9 months since I made that call. That changed everything. I haven't spoken to Sarah again. I haven't seen her again. I heard that she recovered, that she is working a small job, that she is raising Emily the best she can. I'm happy for her, truly, but that is no longer my responsibility. It is no longer my burden. Maybe someday when Emily is older, she will look for me. Maybe she will want to meet her grandmother. Maybe she will want to hear my side of the story. And if that day comes, I will be ready. I will tell her the truth without resentment, without anger. Just the truth. But until then, I live my life. A life that is finally mine. A life that doesn't depend on anyone's approval. A life where I am visible, where I matter, where I deserve. I look in the mirror every morning. I see the wrinkles, the gray hair, the marks of time. But I also see strength. I see dignity. I see a woman who survived, who defended herself, who didn't allow her own daughter's rejection to destroy her. My name is Rose Peterson. I am 67 years old. I was a nurse for 40 years. I was a wife. I was a mother. But above all, now I am myself. And that is more than I ever thought I would be. My name is no longer tied to anyone else's. I am not just Sarah's mother. I am not just my husband's widow. I am Rose, a complete woman, a free woman. A woman who finally learned that self-love is not selfishness, it is survival. My story doesn't end here, it's just beginning because every day I wake up and choose to live with dignity is a new beginning. Every day I choose myself is a victory.